This is a wonderful lookout for viewing Jerusalem. On this side, you see the garden of, the valley of Gehenna. So right along here, that's the valley of Gehenna. That's where they set up idols to pagan gods and actually would throw their children in the burning fire to Molech.
Really?
That's where Judas hung himself.
Really?
Right there. The high priest Annas is actually is actually buried right over there across the valley. In that his tomb is right over there in that area, just across the valley, on that point. So this is where Gehenna meets the Kidron. This is the Kidron Valley. From here, you look over into East Jerusalem. This is the Palestinian area. This is basically Jewish area right here. I want you to notice the Temple Mount. See the walls? Yeah. So that's the Temple Mount. That's the southern stairs where we were the other day, right up there. On the other side is Mount of Olives. Okay. So the Kidron Valley separates Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives. The city of David is this little portion right down here below us. So right now we're on Mount Zion. Mount Zion was separated from Jerusalem by the Tyropoeon Valley, the Central Valley, kind of like where that street is right there. But I want you to imagine this. I want you to imagine not quite 3,000 years ago, David is dying. One of his sons, Adonijah, jumps the gun and decides that he wants to be king, and he gets some supporters. There's a brook right down here called, or a spring called Ein Rogel, or Enrogel.
Okay.
Adonijah is there being crowned king. Bathsheba hears about it. Nathan hears about it. They go to David. David said, "Take Solomon, put him on my donkey, go to Gihon and anoint him king." So while Adonijah and his party are right there, and Adonijah's being anointed king, Solomon is at the Gihon spring right here, and he's being anointed king.
I didn't know it was that close.
So when he's being anointed king, Solomon, the people start shouting. They hear the noise and start running because their plan didn't work out.
Wow.
So that's how close it was.
That's amazing.
Gihon Spring right down here, and at the foot of this in the Kidron Valley, and Enrogel right down here. Maybe out of sight because of the bend, but within sound, within hearing distance.
Less than 2 kilometers away, probably.
So this is the city of David, this small piece of land where the buildings are over here.
Yep.
It was very small. We're standing on what was part of Mount Zion.
Wow.
And that was Mount Moriah. In David's day, there was nothing here. There was nothing over there. There was only the city there with the walls around it.
Wow.
And then in Solomon's day, he built the walls to include the Temple Mount. He built the temple there, built the walls to include Temple Mount. In Hezekiah's day, Hezekiah built the walls to include Mount Zion. So this would have been included in Jerusalem in Hezekiah's day. The present day walls around Jerusalem that you see were built by Suleiman the Magnificent about 500 years ago. And because the two architects that designed and built those walls did not include Mount Zion, they lost their heads.
It's harsh.
They were decapitated.
Wow.
Any questions?
No?
Nope. So
It's
Mount
incredible.
Of Olives, at the bottom of Mount of Olives is Gethsemane, where the trees are.
Okay.
Garden of Gethsemane. And then Temple Mount, City of David, Mount Zion. Where we're standing right now, this direction, this is the location of the high priest's house.
Right.
So when the disciples celebrated the Lord's Supper, they were here on Mount Zion. We're fixing to go there, just a short distance up further up the mount here. Then they went down and through and across the Kidron Valley to the Garden of Gethsemane. That's where Jesus prayed, not my will, but thine be done. And that's where Judas betrayed him. So they captured him there in Gethsemane, brought him back right up this hill. The stairway is still there.
Wow.
I'll show you the stairway in just a moment, where they brought Jesus up and tried him right here at Caiaphas' house. That's the significance of this location.
That's amazing.
The church called Gallicantu, that is existing today. That's the bell tower you see right there.
Okay.
It's built over the remains of the high priest's house.
Okay, so it was right there.
So it was right there. This is where Peter denied Jesus.
Wow.
This is where Jesus was tried. And remember, he went from here, upper room, down to the Garden of Gethsemane, was betrayed there, brought back here to this location, tried, kept overnight until they could take him to Pilate the next morning. And this is where Peter denied that he knew Jesus 3 times.
Wow.
These are the doors to the Church of the Gallicantu, which means the rooster crowing. This was the church that was built on the site of the house of the high priest, Caiaphas. And this demonstrates Peter's denial of Jesus and Jesus looking at Peter. And he denied that he knew him. Let's go down into the basement of this church. There are several chapels, but we won't visit them. But into the basement of this church is the dungeon where they probably kept Jesus in the hours before they took him to Pilate. It's very possible that this is the pit where they kept Jesus in the hours before they sent him to Pilate. They would not have walked him down the stairs. They would probably have lowered him through that hole you see in the ceiling. This is typical of the way that they would put prisoners in and out of a dungeon or a jail or a prison. You'll notice the same thing if you visit the carcer in Rome, where they probably kept Paul in the Mamertine prison. So Jesus may have spent the hours before he went to Pilate here. And the 88th Psalm is, I think, prophetic for what he went through. O Lord, God of my salvation, I have cried day and night before thee. Let my prayer come before thee. Incline thine ear unto my cry. For my soul is full of troubles. My life draweth nigh unto the grave. I am counted with them that go down into the pit. I am as a man that hath no strength. Free among the dead, like the slain that lie in the grave, whom thou rememberest no more, and they are cut off from thy hand. Thou hast laid me in the lowest pit, in darkness, in the deeps. Thy wrath lieth hard upon me, and thou hast afflicted me with all thy waves. Selah. Thou hast put away mine acquaintance far from me. Thou hast made me an abomination unto them. I am shut up, I cannot come forth. Mine eye mourneth by reason of affliction, Lord. I have called daily upon thee. I have stretched out my hands unto thee. Wilt thou show wonders to the dead? Shall the dead arise and praise thee? Selah. Shall thy loving kindness be declared in the grave, or thy faithfulness in destruction? Shall thy wonders be known in the dark, and thy righteousness in the land of forgetfulness? But unto thee have I cried, O Lord, and in the morning shall my prayer prevent thee. Lord, why castest thou off my soul? Why hidest thou thy face from me? I am afflicted and ready to die. From my youth up, while I suffer thy terrors, I am distracted. Thy fierce wrath goeth over me. Thy terrors have cut me off. They came round about me daily like water. They compassed me about together. Lover and friend hast thou put far from me, and mine acquaintance into darkness. So if Jesus was put here, he was put here immediately after he was declared guilty of blasphemy by the high priest and the priestly court. And immediately after being denied by who was possibly his closest apostle, at least the one that he entrusted the keys to. And Peter went out into the darkness and wept. And they that laid hold on Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, right down there, the other side of the pinnacle of the temple, they led him away to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and the elders were assembled. And that was right here. That was right here. This is the remains. This, and under this church are the remains of the house of Caiaphas, the high priest. But Peter followed him afar off unto the high priest's palace, and went in and sat with the servants to see the end. Now the chief priests and elders and all the council sought false witness against Jesus to put him to death, but found none. Yea, though many false witnesses came, yet found they none. At the last came 2 false witnesses and said, This fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and build it in 3 days. And the high priest arose and said to him, Answerest thou nothing? What is it which these witness against thee? But Jesus said, Peace. And the high priest answered and said unto him, I adjure thee that Christ the Son of God. And Jesus saith unto him, Thou hast said, Nevertheless I say unto you, hereafter shall you see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of power and coming in the clouds of heaven. Then the high priest rent his clothes, saying, He hath spoken blasphemy. What further need have we of witnesses? Behold, now ye have heard his blasphemy. What think ye? They answered and said, He's guilty of death. Then did they spit in his face, buffeted him, and others smote him with the palms of their hands, saying, Prophesy unto us, thou Christ. Who is he that smote thee? Now Peter sat without in the palace. So he's right here. He's right out here. He sat without in the palace. And a damsel came unto him, saying, Thou also wast with Jesus of Galilee. But he denied before them all, saying, I know not what thou sayest. And when was gone out into the porch, another maid saw him and said unto them that were there, This fellow was also with Jesus of Nazareth. And again he denied with an oath, I do not know the man. And after a while came unto him they that stood by and said to Peter, Surely thou also art one of them, for thy speech betrayeth thee. Then began he to curse and to swear, saying, I know not the man. And immediately the cock crew. And Peter remembered the word of Jesus, which said unto him, Before the cock crow, thou shalt deny me thrice. And another gospel said that Jesus looked at Peter, and he went out and wept bitterly. So it was right here. And Peter went out into the darkness. We're going to go right over here and see the actual steps that they brought Jesus up from Gethsemane. This is part of the remains of the high priest's palace. And in there, of course, we saw the dungeon where they kept Jesus after he was tried. So it was right in this area. And you might be standing on the spot where they built the fire, where Peter warmed his hands. And Jesus was being tried for his life, accused of blasphemy, which according to the Jews was a capital offense. And his friend, the one that he had given the keys to the kingdom to, the one who said he would be willing to die with him, was out here saying, I never knew him. I don't know him. And then he cursed. It happened right in this area. And yet, Jesus continued to use him, and he became the spokesman on the day of Pentecost. What a story of forgiveness. These stones are the stairs. The first time I came here, this was open. There was no fence, and they would allow you to walk up and down and pray on these stairs, but I guess too many people were taking too much time, so they fenced it off. But when they brought Jesus, they brought Jesus from the Garden of Gethsemane. They brought him right up here, right up this staircase, into the high priest's house.
It's amazing. Kind of fills you with awe.
His feet touched those stones. Feet that were soon to be pierced. Feet that were to carry a cross. One thing. I want a picture of you here.
I can take it.
For me.
You want me to take it that way?
Take one that way with the steps in the background, and then take one straight on with Jerusalem in the background.
You turn a little more this way,
Okay.
and I can get some more of the steps. Yeah. That one over here. Okay, I got a lot.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.